There's a moment when you look up at the night sky, when the sheer scale of it all hits you, not just as numbers or facts, but as something deeper, something almost visceral. The stars aren't just points of light, they're reminders of how unimaginably far apart everything truly is. The closest star to us, Proxima Centauri, is so distant that its light takes over 4 years to reach Earth. And that's just our cosmic neighborhood. Stretch your gaze further, and you're looking at distances so vast they're measured in billions of years, a scale so immense it defies human intuition. This is the emotional weight of cosmic isolation, a feeling that lingers in the silence between stars, in the emptiness that stretches farther than we can fathom. It's a loneliness written into the fabric of the universe itself. Think about what that means for us, tiny specks on a pale blue dot, trying to make sense of it all. For centuries, humans have looked up and felt both wonder and a quiet dread, awe at the beauty, but also the unsettling realization of how alone we might truly be. Ancient civilizations mapped the heavens, telling stories to fill the void with gods and heroes. Today, astronauts float in the darkness of space, experiencing firsthand what it's like to be untethered from Earth, with the whole planet reduced to a fragile marble in the black. That duality, the breathtaking majesty of the cosmos paired with its crushing indifference, is something that resonates deep in our bones. It's why we're drawn to stories of exploration, of searching for life beyond our world, because the alternative, that we might be utterly alone, is almost too heavy to bear. But here's the thing, that very loneliness might also be what connects us most deeply to the universe. It's a shared human experience, this ache to understand our place in the grand scheme of things. Whether you're an astronomer peering through a telescope or just someone lying on a hillside, staring up at the Milky Way, that feeling is universal. In this video, we're going to explore how cosmic isolation shapes not just science, but our very souls, how it fuels our curiosity, sharpens our fears, and forces us to confront what it means to exist in such an unfathomably vast space. By the end, you won't just see the night sky differently, you'll feel it, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find a strange comfort in the silence, knowing that even in the emptiness, we're all looking up together. To grasp the true scale of cosmic distances, let's start with something familiar, the Moon. It's our closest celestial neighbor, a mere 239,000 miles away on average. That might sound like a lot, but in cosmic terms, it's practically next door. Now, stretch your imagination further. The Sun sits 93 million miles from Earth, a distance so vast that its light takes 8 minutes to reach us. That means every sunrise you've ever witnessed is already 8 minutes old by the time it touches your eyes. And that's just the beginning. Venture beyond our solar system, and the numbers spiral into the incomprehensible. Take Proxima Centauri again, the closest star outside our Sun. At 4.2 light-years away, its light takes over 4 years to travel here. If you could hop on a spacecraft moving at the speed of today's fastest probes, it would still take tens of thousands of years to arrive. Now zoom out even further. Our Milky Way galaxy alone spans 100,000 light-years from end to end, containing hundreds of billions of stars. And yet, it's just one among 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe, each separated by voids so immense they make our galaxy feel like a grain of sand in an endless desert. Astronomers measure these mind-bending distances using tools like redshift and parallax. Redshift, the stretching of light as the universe expands, reveals how fast galaxies are racing away from us, and in turn, how far they've gone. Parallax, the subtle shift in a star's position when viewed from different angles, helps map our cosmic backyard. These methods paint a picture of a universe that's not just expanding but accelerating, carrying galaxies apart at speeds that will one day render them invisible to future observers. And where does that leave us? The Milky Way drifts in a modest cluster called the Local Group, a gathering of 54 galaxies bound by gravity. From here, the nearest major galaxy, Andromeda, is 2.5 million light-years away, a distance so colossal that even if we could travel at light speed, generations would pass before we arrived. This isn't just about numbers, it's about confronting the reality that we may never span these gaps, not in our lifetimes, not in 1,000 lifetimes. The universe isn't just big, it's built to keep us apart. That realization does something to you. It's one thing to know intellectually that space is vast. It's another to feel it, to stand under the stars and truly absorb that each pinprick of light is a sun, some with planets of their own, all separated by gulfs so wide they might as well be infinite. The cosmos doesn't just dwarf us, it isolates us, leaving humanity adrift in a sea of darkness. And yet, there's a strange beauty in that isolation. It forces us to cherish the connections we do have, to marvel at the fact that against all odds we exist at all. In a universe so vast, our very awareness of it is a miracle. But if the universe is so unimaginably vast, filled with billions of galaxies, each home to billions of stars, where is everybody? This is the heart of the Fermi Paradox, a question that haunts our search for meaning in the cosmos. On paper, the numbers suggest we should be swimming in neighbors. The Milky Way alone holds an estimated 100 billion planets in the so-called Goldilocks zone, where conditions might support life as we know it. Even if only a tiny fraction of those planets developed civilizations, the universe should be buzzing with activity, and yet when we listen, all we hear is silence. That silence carries a weight. It's not just the absence of signals or signs, it's the growing realization that we might be profoundly, achingly alone. Imagine shouting into a canyon and hearing nothing back, not even an echo. That's the emotional toll of the Fermi Paradox. It forces us to confront two unsettling possibilities. Either we're the first, an accident of cosmic timing, a flicker of awareness in a universe still waking up, or we're the last, arriving too late to a party that ended eons ago. Both scenarios are equally haunting. Some theories suggest advanced civilizations might self-destruct, their technologies outpacing their wisdom. Others propose that spacefaring species inevitably hit a wall, a great filter that prevents life from spreading beyond its home world. Then there's the darker thought. What if intelligence itself is a dead end? What if every civilization, upon reaching a certain point, looks into the void and succumbs to the crushing weight of cosmic loneliness? The universe might be littered with the ruins of societies that ask the same questions we're asking now, only to find no answers. But here's the twist: the very act of searching for others, of straining to hear a whisper in the dark, might be the most human thing we can do. It's defiance in the face of isolation. Projects like SETI, scanning the skies for signals, or missions to Mars, hunting for microbial fossils, aren't just science. They're a refusal to accept that we're alone. Every telescope pointed at the stars is, in a way, a lifeline thrown into the abyss, a hope that something, anything, might grab the other end. The irony is that the Fermi Paradox doesn't just deepen our loneliness, it binds us together. It's a shared mystery, a question that unites every human who's ever looked up and wondered. In a universe that feels empty, our curiosity becomes the bridge. Maybe we'll find others, maybe we won't, but the search itself, the stubborn, beautiful refusal to accept silence as the final answer, that's what makes us more than just specks in the dark. It's what makes us alive. Astronauts who have gazed at Earth from orbit describe a paradox, a moment of overwhelming connection paired with crushing solitude. They call it the overview effect, a shift in consciousness that rewires how you see everything. Picture looking out a spacecraft window and seeing your entire world, all of human history, every mountain and ocean, reduced to a fragile blue marble hanging in the black. It's awe so intense it borders on spiritual, but then comes the loneliness, because beyond that fragile bubble of life, there's nothing. No sound, no warmth, just an endless vacuum stretching in every direction. This duality haunts those who have experienced it. Astronaut Nicole Stott once described returning from space feeling like she'd left part of herself up there, untethered. Others talk about the eerie silence, the absence of wind, birds, even the hum of electronics fades into the background when you're floating in the void. And it's not just sensory deprivation. The longer you're out there, the more you realize how utterly cut off you are. On the International Space Station, help is only a few hundred miles away. But on a Mars mission, you'd be so far from home that a simple hello would take 20 minutes to reach Earth and another 20 just to hear the reply. Every conversation would be a game of cosmic voicemail, stretching even the closest relationships into echoes. Scientists studying the psychology of deep space travel warn that isolation could be our biggest hurdle. In experiments like Mars 500, volunteers sealed in a mock spacecraft for months reported creeping dread, even among trained crews. One participant compared it to being stranded on an island, except the ocean is infinite and there's no horizon to swim toward. The vastness outside the window isn't just scenery, it's a mirror, reflecting back how small we really are. Yet there's something strangely unifying about this struggle. Astronauts often return with a fierce urgency to protect Earth, as if seeing its fragility from afar rewrote their priorities. Maybe that's the hidden gift of cosmic isolation. It doesn't just show us how alone we are. It shows us how much we need each other. The farther we venture into the void, the clearer it becomes. The only antidote to that yawning emptiness is the connections we cling to, the voices whispering back across the dark. There's a silence in space so absolute it defies human experience. On Earth, we're surrounded by sound, the rustle of leaves, the crash of waves, the hum of cities, a constant soundtrack reminding us we're not alone. But step beyond our atmosphere and that noise vanishes. Sound can't travel in a vacuum, which means space isn't just quiet, it's deafeningly empty. Every explosion, every collision between stars happens in perfect silence. Imagine floating in that void where even your own heartbeat would be swallowed by the stillness. This silence isn't neutral. It presses in, amplifying the isolation until it feels almost intentional. When the Voyager probes carried golden records into the cosmos, etched with greetings in 55 languages, the sounds of whales, even Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good, they weren't just messages. They were screams into the dark, attempts to shatter that silence with proof we existed. But here's the haunting truth. Those records might drift for billions of years without ever being found. The same emptiness that carries our signals also dilutes them, stretching our whispers into oblivion. That cosmic indifference cuts deeper than distance. On Earth, even in solitude, you're wrapped in a web of unseen connections, the distant laugh of a stranger, the rumble of a train miles away. But in space, the silence is total. Astronauts report that the most unnerving part isn't the weightlessness or the view. It's looking out the window and realizing no one would hear you scream. The International Space Station is a bubble of noise, fans whirring, machines beeping, but outside, nothing. Just stars hanging motionless, mute witnesses to our tiny bubble of life. Yet this silence also holds a strange kind of clarity. Without Earth's noise pollution, radio telescopes can listen to the universe's faintest echoes, the afterglow of the Big Bang, the pulses of distant quasars. In that way, space isn't truly silent. We just lack the ears to hear its language. The cosmos hums with radio waves and gravitational ripples, a symphony we're only beginning to decode. Maybe that's the ultimate irony. The universe isn't ignoring us. We're the ones struggling to hear its reply. Time doesn't flow the same everywhere in the universe, a fact that twists cosmic isolation into something even more unsettling. Einstein's theory of relativity revealed that time slows down near massive objects or at high speeds, a phenomenon called time dilation. Picture an astronaut traveling near the speed of light to a star hundreds of light years away. For them, the journey might feel like a decade, but back on Earth, centuries could pass. They'd return to a world where everyone they loved had lived, aged, and died long ago. The universe wouldn't just separate them by distance, it would exile them to the future, stranding them in a time that no longer remembers them. This isn't science fiction. GPS satellites orbiting Earth have to account for time dilation. Their clocks tick ever so slightly faster than ours on the ground because they're farther from Earth's gravity. The effect is tiny, but it adds up. Now scale that up to interstellar travel. A voyage to the center of our galaxy at near light speed could mean leaving Earth in the 21st century and returning in the 41st. The emotional toll of that disconnect is almost too much to grasp. You wouldn't just be far from home, you'd be untethered from it entirely, a ghost visiting a future that has no place for you. The cruelest part, time dilation isn't some malfunction of the universe. It's a fundamental feature, as natural as gravity or light. The cosmos doesn't care that your return journey would render you a relic. It simply obeys the rules, stretching time like taffy without a second thought for the lives it snaps apart. That indifference cuts deeper than the vastness of space. Distance can be measured, even if the numbers are staggering, but time is a one-way river, and relativity ensures some of us might get left behind. Consider the psychological weight of that. Astronauts on the International Space Station experience microversions of this after months in orbit. They've technically aged a fraction of a second, less than people on Earth. But imagine knowing your journey would erase your chance to ever see your children grow old, to share stories with friends, to walk the streets of the only home you've ever known. Every moment in space would be shadowed by the awareness that your clock is ticking out of sync with everyone else's. You wouldn't just be alone in space, you'd be alone in time, watching the universe move on without you. Yet there's a haunting beauty in this too. Time dilation forces us to confront what really matters. If every voyage risks severing us from our own era, then every second with the people we love becomes infinitely precious. The universe might be indifferent, but we don't have to be. In the face of such vast, uncaring mechanics, our connections become acts of defiance, tiny rebellions against the cosmic silence. Maybe that's the lesson hidden in relativity's cold equations. The universe will stretch and warp time as it pleases, but it can't stop us from clinging to each other, even if only for a moment. Long before telescopes or space probes, humans looked up at the night sky and felt the weight of the cosmos pressing down. Ancient myths from every corner of the world tell the same story, one of vast, indifferent heavens and fragile, lonely beings trying to make sense of their place within it. Take the Norse Yggdrasil, the great world tree whose branches stretch into the void, holding the 9 realms in its grasp. Even in this intricate cosmology, humanity huddles in Midgard, a single realm surrounded by an abyss so deep that the gods themselves fear what lies beyond. The tree isn't just a map of the universe, It's a metaphor for our isolation, with roots and branches extending into realms we can never truly reach. The Hindu Rigveda paints an even starker picture. It describes the universe as a cosmic egg, floating in an endless ocean of nothingness. Within that egg, gods and mortals alike are bound by cycles of creation and destruction, trapped in a dance they didn't choose. The loneliness here isn't just physical, it's existential. The texts ask, who really knows, who can say where this creation came from? A question that echoes our modern uncertainty about whether anyone or anything is out there listening. Then there's the Greek titan Atlas, condemned to hold up the sky for eternity. His punishment isn't just the weight of the heavens, it's the solitude. He stands alone, a figure stretched between earth and stars, never able to let go, never able to rest. It's no coincidence that so many cultures imagined their gods straining under the burden of the cosmos. These myths aren't just about explaining the stars, they're about confronting the terrifying possibility that the universe might not care whether we exist at all. But here's what's remarkable. These stories weren't just expressions of fear. They were acts of defiance. By giving names to the emptiness, by turning the void into gods, trees, and giants, early civilizations were doing something profound. They were building bridges across the isolation, creating narratives to make the cosmos feel less indifferent. When the Babylonians mapped the zodiac or the Maya tracked Venus with uncanny precision, they weren't just calculating orbits. They were trying to find patterns in the chaos to prove that even in the vastness there was meaning. That urge hasn't left us. Modern astronomy might have replaced gods with galaxies, but the question remains the same: are we alone? The difference is that now we have the tools to search for answers. Yet in some ways, the old myths still speak louder than our data. They remind us that cosmic loneliness isn't a discovery of the space age. It's a shadow that's followed humanity since the first campfire, since the first time someone looked up and wondered if the stars were watching back. The Drake equation is more than just a string of numbers, it's a mathematical whisper of possibility in the dark. Dreamed up by astronomer Frank Drake in 1961, it's a way to quantify our cosmic loneliness by estimating how many civilizations might be out there, right now, reaching across the void. The equation itself is deceptively simple. Multiply the average rate of star formation by the fraction of those stars with planets, then by the number of planets that could support life, then by the odds life actually emerges, and so on, layer after layer, until you're left with a number that could be 0 or 1,000,000. The variables are slippery, each one a question mark wrapped in uncertainty. But here's the thing, even when you plug in the most conservative estimates, the equation rarely spits out 1. That's the sting. The math insists we shouldn't be alone, and yet the universe stays silent. Every empty frequency on our radio telescopes, every barren exoplanet we study, feels like a door slammed shut. But the Drake equation isn't just a reminder of what we haven't found. It's a map of where we haven't looked yet. Take the variable for how long civilizations last, the L in the equation. Maybe the reason we haven't heard from anyone is because advanced societies flame out too quickly, collapsing under war or climate disasters before they can reach the stars. Or maybe, just maybe, we're the youngest ones at the party. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, but complex life on Earth only emerged in the last sliver of that time. What if others are still ahead of us, just out of earshot, waiting for our technology to catch up? There's a quiet optimism buried in those variables. The equation doesn't just measure distance or time, it measures patience. Right now, we're like kids shouting into a cave, listening for echoes that haven't had time to return. The nearest star system with potential, Proxima Centauri b, is practically next door in cosmic terms, but even a signal traveling at light speed would take over 4 years just to say hello. And that's the closest candidate. Scale up to the Milky Way's 100,000 light-year span, and a conversation could take generations. The silence isn't proof of absence, it's proof of how slow the mail is. That's why the next century could change everything. Projects like Breakthrough Listen are scanning millions of stars, hunting for the faintest technosignatures, radio waves, laser pulses, even megastructures blocking starlight. The James Webb Space Telescope peers into atmospheres of distant worlds, sniffing for the chemical fingerprints of life. And then there's METI, Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence, the controversial effort to actively beam signals into space instead of just listening. Critics call it reckless, like shouting in a jungle we don't understand. But supporters argue it's the only way to break the stalemate of mutual silence. The Drake equation's real power isn't in the answer it gives, it's in the questions it forces us to ask. Every time we tweak a variable, we're not just doing math. We're deciding what kind of universe we want to live in, one where life is a fluke, a spark that flickers out unheard, or one where the cosmos hums with voices and we're just straining to hear the first note. The equation doesn't solve the paradox, it holds it open like a door we can't walk through yet. But every telescope we build, every signal we send, is a hand on that door pushing. In 1974, a radio signal blasted from the Arecibo telescope toward a cluster of stars 25,000 light-years away. It lasted 3 minutes, a brief, digital hello etched in ones and zeros, carrying our atomic numbers, our DNA structure, even a crude stick figure of a human. The message was a shot in the dark, aimed at a target so distant it won't arrive for millennia. By the time it reaches its destination, if anyone's there to hear it, the Arecibo telescope itself will have crumbled to dust. That's the paradox of interstellar messaging. We're shouting into a canyon where the echoes take lifetimes to return. The Arecibo signal wasn't our first attempt. A year earlier, the Pioneer plaque's gold anodized aluminum cards bolted to the Pioneer 10 and 11 spacecraft were launched into the void, etched with a man and woman waving, a map of our solar system, and a pulsar code pointing back to Earth. They were meant as cosmic breadcrumbs. But here's the brutal truth. Space is so vast that even these carefully crafted messages are like confetti tossed into a hurricane. The pioneers, now drifting silently in the dark, have a better chance of being swallowed by a passing star than found by another civilization. Then there's Voyager's golden record, perhaps our most poetic effort. A 12-inch gold-plated copper disc packed with sounds of earth thunder, laughter, a mother's first words to her child, and instructions on how to play it, just in case someone someday stumbles upon it. But Voyager won't come close to another star for 40,000 years. By then, the record's grooves might be eroded by cosmic dust, its messages faded into noise. These artifacts aren't just time capsules, they're epitaphs, proof that we tried to be heard in a universe that might not be listening. Yet for all their futility, these messages matter. They're not really for the aliens, they're for us. Each signal, each plaque is a mirror held up to humanity, asking what we value enough to send into eternity. The Arecibo message didn't include our wars or our pollution. It showed our science, our curiosity. The golden record didn't carry screams or sirens. It carried music, the murmur of the ocean, the crackle of fire. In choosing what to broadcast, we revealed what we hope to be. Not just a species that calculates distances, but one that sings into the dark. That's the heartbreaking beauty of these efforts. They acknowledge our isolation while refusing to surrender to it. Every message we send is a bet against the odds, a wager that somewhere, somehow, the universe might be less lonely than it seems. And even if they're never found, these whispers into the void still serve a purpose. They remind us that the opposite of cosmic isolation isn't contact, it's courage. The courage to reach out even when no one answers. The courage to declare against all evidence that we're here. Black holes aren't just cosmic anomalies, they're the universe's most poignant metaphor for isolation. Picture a region of space so dense, so utterly consuming that nothing escapes, not even light. It's the ultimate silence, a place where matter and energy vanish without a trace. That's the chilling parallel to human loneliness, the sensation of being pulled into a void where no signal, no connection can break free. Astronomers call the boundary of a black hole the event horizon, the point of no return. Cross it and you're severed from the rest of existence, cut off as completely as a star's light snuffed out by the dark. But here's where the metaphor twists. Black holes don't just trap, they transform. Their gravity bends time and space so severely that the rules of reality unravel. Near the event horizon, time slows to a crawl. A clock falling inward would tick slower and slower to an outside observer, as if the universe itself were pressing pause. In a way, isolation does the same to us. It distorts our perception, making minutes feel like hours, amplifying the weight of solitude until it warps our sense of connection. The longer you're alone, the harder it becomes to remember what life was like before the void. Yet black holes also hint at mysteries beyond their darkness. Some theories suggest they might be portals, their crushing cores folding space-time into bridges to other universes. Wormholes, cosmic shortcuts, ideas that turn these monsters into potential gateways. It's a tantalizing thought that even in the most desolate corners of existence, there might be paths to somewhere else. Could the same be true of human isolation, that in its depths we find unseen passages, new ways of thinking, creating, or connecting that only emerge when we're stripped of everything familiar? The irony is that black holes, for all their solitude, are rarely alone. They lurk at the hearts of galaxies, surrounded by swirling stars and gas, their gravity orchestrating the dance of entire systems. Even in their isolation, they shape the universe around them. Maybe that's the final lesson. Loneliness, like a black hole, can feel all-consuming, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Its gravity pulls others into orbit, artists who turn solitude into music, scientists who channel isolation into discovery, communities that form around shared voids. The universe doesn't just build walls, it builds bridges even in the darkest places, and sometimes the only way to see them is to stare into the abyss long enough for your eyes to adjust. Imagine being trapped in a metal tube with 5 other people for 6 months, floating 250 miles above Earth. The walls hum with machinery, the air smells like sweat and disinfectant, and outside your tiny window, there's nothing but an endless black void. This isn't a dystopian novel, it's daily life aboard the International Space Station. Astronauts train for years to handle the technical demands of spaceflight, but no amount of preparation can fully shield them from the psychological toll of isolation. Studies from missions like NASA HIC's Analog, where crews live in a Mars-like habitat on Earth, reveal unsettling patterns. Depression, irritability, and sleep disturbances creep in, even among the most disciplined minds. The lack of natural light, the constant noise of equipment, the inability to step outside for fresh air, these aren't just inconveniences. They're slow drips of stress that erode mental resilience over time. The real test comes when Earth shrinks to a distant speck. On the ISS, astronauts can still see continents, storms, city lights, a visceral connection to home. But on a Mars mission, that blue dot would fade until it vanished entirely. Psychologists call this the Earth out of view phenomenon, and its effects are chilling. Analog missions on Earth, like Russia's Mars 500 experiment, show how quickly isolation warps perception. Volunteers sealed in a mock spacecraft for 520 days reported hallucinating sounds, seeing phantom movement in their peripheral vision. One participant described it as watching your own mind unravel in slow motion. The brain, starved of sensory variety, starts inventing stimuli just to stay engaged. Then there's the communication lag. On Mars, a simple "good night" message to family would take 20 minutes to reach Earth and another 20 to hear their reply. Conversations become like sending letters by horseback across a continent. That delay isn't just technical, it's emotional sabotage. Research from Antarctic winter over cruise, another proxy for space isolation, shows how delayed communication breeds paranoia. Misinterpreted tones fester, jokes land wrong. A pause in a loved one's voice becomes a silent accusation. Without real-time connection, even the closest relationships start to feel like echoes. But perhaps the cruelest twist is the monotony. Space isn't the dramatic, asteroid-dodging adventure of movies. It's repetitive tasks, recycled air, the same faces day after day. Astronauts on the ISS meticulously schedule their time to avoid idle moments because emptiness is dangerous. Boredom in extreme isolation doesn't just dull the mind, it amplifies every minor annoyance into a rage trigger. NASA studies of crew dynamics reveal how trivial habits, someone chewing too loudly, leaving tools adrift, can spark resentment that simmers for weeks. In closed environments, there's no escape, no way to cool off. Conflicts don't resolve, they metastasize. Future Mars colonists won't just face these challenges, they'll face them without the safety net of a quick return. A crisis on the ISS means evacuation can happen in hours. On Mars, help is at least 7 months away, assuming the launch windows align. That knowledge lingers, a low-grade dread beneath every decision. Will the crew bond under pressure or fracture? Will the first interplanetary divorce happen mid-flight? These aren't hypotheticals, they are inevitabilities we're only beginning to prepare for. Yet amid these grim realities, there's a counterintuitive hope. Astronauts who endure long missions often describe a paradoxical shift. The very isolation that strains them also forges a unique camaraderie. When you're the only 6 humans for millions of miles, petty grievances start to feel absurd. Shared vulnerability becomes glue. Maybe that's the ultimate lesson of cosmic isolation. It doesn't just break people. It reveals what's left when everything else is stripped away, and sometimes, against all odds, what's left is enough. Cosmic horror doesn't just scare us, it hollows us out. H.P. Lovecraft mastered this with stories where the universe isn't merely indifferent, it's actively hostile. In The Call of Cthulhu, humanity stumbles upon an ancient god sleeping beneath the ocean, a being so vast and alien that glimpsing it drives men to madness. The terror isn't in the monster itself, but in the realization that we're irrelevant to it. Cthulhu doesn't hate us, it doesn't even notice us. That's the essence of cosmic horror, the crushing weight of being nothing in a universe that doesn't care if we live or die. Modern sci-fi takes this dread and stretches it across light years. Interstellar's most haunting scene isn't the black hole or the dying planet. It's the moment Cooper, stranded near Saturn, watches 23 years of messages from Earth flood his screen. His children grew up without him, his family moved on. Time, warped by relativity, severed him from everyone he loved, and the universe didn't pause to apologize. The film's true villain isn't famine or physics. It's the sheer, uncaring distance between stars, the way space doesn't just separate bodies, it erases connections. What makes these stories so unsettling is how they weaponize scale. Lovecraft's monsters aren't just big, they defy comprehension. The color, out of space, in his story of the same name, isn't a hue humans can describe. It's something outside our perception, a reminder of how little we can truly grasp. Similarly, Annihilation's shimmering zone warps life into grotesque hybrids, not out of malice, but because the rules there are simply different. These narratives prey on our fear of the unknowable, the terror of being a goldfish suddenly aware of the ocean's depths. Yet cosmic horror isn't just about monsters, it's about the fragility of meaning. In The Whisperer in Darkness, Lovecraft's protagonists uncover a cosmic truth. Humanity might just be livestock for elder gods, our civilizations less significant than mold on bread. Arrival flips this. The alien's language rewires human brains to perceive time non-linearly, revealing a future where grief is inevitable. Both stories force the same question: what if understanding the universe doesn't enlighten us but unmakes us? The genius of this genre is how it mirrors real science. Astronomers now know that 95% of the universe is dark matter and dark energy, stuff we can't see, touch, or comprehend. Black holes shred the laws of physics. Quantum particles defy logic. Our best theories end in questions. Cosmic horror takes these truths and twists them into nightmares, asking, what if the universe isn't just mysterious but malicious? But here's the twist. These stories also comfort us. By giving form to our fears, they make the void feel less random. When Lovecraft's protagonists go mad, it's because they saw too much. There's a perverse relief in that. It means the terror has edges, rules. The unknown becomes knowable, even if the knowledge destroys you. In a strange way, cosmic horror is the only genre honest enough to admit what we all secretly feel when we stare at the stars. The universe is beautiful, and it will never love us back. Earth sits in a cosmic sweet spot so precise it borders on miraculous. The Goldilocks zone, that narrow band around a star where temperatures are just right for liquid water, isn't just a convenient fluke. It's a razor-thin margin of survival in a universe that's overwhelmingly hostile. Step too close to the sun and oceans boil away. Stray too far and they freeze solid. Earth's orbit is so perfectly balanced that even a 5% shift either way would render our planet uninhabitable, and that's just the beginning. Consider the ingredients for life as we know it. Not only do we need liquid water, but a stable atmosphere, a magnetic field to shield us from solar radiation, and a Jupiter-like neighbor to deflect asteroids. Plate tectonics to recycle carbon, a moon to stabilize our tilt, and a star that doesn't spew lethal flares. The list goes on, each factor a thread in an impossibly delicate web. Astronomers call this the rare Earth hypothesis, and the numbers back it up. Of the thousands of exoplanets discovered so far, only a handful sit in their star's habitable zone. And even then, most are either tidally locked with one side eternally scorched, the other frozen, or battered by extreme weather. Kepler 442b might have liquid water, but its skies are likely choked with toxic clouds. TRAPPIST-1e could be temperate, but its red dwarf star bombards it with radiation. The more we search, the more Earth's perfection feels like winning the universe's lottery. This fragility sharpens the sting of cosmic isolation. Mars, our next-door neighbor, is a cautionary tale. It once had rivers, maybe even oceans, but lacking Earth's robust magnetic field, its atmosphere was stripped away by solar winds, leaving a barren desert. Venus, closer to the sun, became a runaway greenhouse, its surface hot enough to melt lead. These aren't just failed planets, they're mirrors. They show how easily the threads holding our biosphere together could unravel. The universe isn't just indifferent to life, it's actively hostile to it. Radiation, vacuum, extreme heat and cold, these are the norms. Our blue marble, with its lush forests and teeming oceans, is the aberration. That realization changes how we see the night sky. Those pinpricks of light aren't just distant suns, they're potential graveyards. For every star with a planet in the Goldilocks zone, there are countless others where life never got a foothold or where it flickered out long ago. The Milky Way alone may harbor 40 billion Earth-sized planets in habitable zones, but habitable doesn't mean inhabited. The gulf between a planet that could support life and one that actually does might be unbridgeable. We don't just wonder if we're alone, we wonder if we're the only ones who ever made it this far. Yet there's a quiet power in that fragility. Knowing how rare we are makes every sunrise, every breath feel like defiance. The universe may be vast and uncaring, but here, for now, against all odds, this fragile world keeps spinning. The very loneliness that haunts us also binds us to each other, to this pale blue dot we call home. In the grand cosmic story, we might be just a sentence, but what a sentence it is. For 60 years, we've been straining to hear a whisper in the cosmic static. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI, has scanned millions of frequencies across the radio spectrum, pointing massive dishes at the likeliest stars, the most promising exoplanets. The result, a silence so complete it echoes. Every empty bandwidth, every static-filled readout feels like a door creaking shut in the dark. The famous WOW signal from 1977, a 37-second burst that seemed too perfect to be natural, remains our closest maybe, a cosmic mayday that never repeated. Since then, nothing but the indifferent hum of the universe. This silence isn't passive. It's an active weight pressing down on every assumption we've made about our place in the cosmos. The Drake equation told us the galaxy should be buzzing. Fermi asked where everybody is. SETI empty notebooks reply with a shrug. Maybe we're listening wrong. Our radio telescopes are primitive by interstellar standards, like trying to overhear a conversation across a stadium with a tin can telephone. Advanced civilizations might have moved beyond radio, communicating with quantum entanglement or neutrino pulses, technologies we're only beginning to fathom. Or perhaps they're shouting, but their signals are buried in the noise, drowned out by the natural radio screams of pulsars and quasars. Then there's the darker thought: what if the silence is intentional? The zoo hypothesis suggests advanced species might be observing us quietly, like biologists hiding behind one-way glass. Or worse, the dark forest theory, that every civilization stays silent because broadcasting your location is suicide in a universe where predators might lurk. These aren't just sci-fi tropes, they're legitimate frameworks debated by astrobiologists. The silence forces us to confront whether we're pioneers, the first sparks of awareness in a young universe, or orphans, the last survivors of a cosmic experiment that's already failed. Yet SETI work continues because the alternative, giving up, is unthinkable. New projects like Breakthrough listen, deploy machine learning to sift through petabytes of data, hunting for patterns no human could spot. The Allen Telescope Array scans 24/7, its dozens of dishes tuned like a giant ear pressed to the galaxy's door. Even if they find nothing, the search reshapes us. Every hour spent listening is an act of faith, a bet that the universe isn't just a graveyard of might-have-beens. The most haunting possibility isn't that we're alone. It's that we're not, and we'll never know. Civilizations could rise and fall in the gaps between stars, their signals crossing ours like ships in the night, separated by centuries. Our entire species might flicker out before our first hello reaches ears capable of understanding it. But here's the paradox: in straining to hear others, we've learned to listen to ourselves. SETI silence has become a mirror, reflecting back our loneliness, our resilience, and the stubborn hope that somewhere in the dark, someone else is listening too. Generation ships are more than just vessels, they're floating prisons built on hope. Picture a self-contained world hurtling through the void for centuries, where the original crew's great-great-grandchildren are the ones who might finally reach the destination. These travelers would never feel sunlight on their skin, never breathe unfiltered air. Their entire universe would be recycled water, artificial gravity, and the same faces echoing through metal corridors. The psychological toll alone is horrifying. Studies of Antarctic winter crews and submarine teams show how quickly isolation warps human minds. Now stretch that confinement across generations with no emergency exit, no chance to turn back. The ethical dilemmas here are staggering. By launching a generation ship, we'd be making an impossible choice for people who don't exist yet, condemning them to lives of constrained purpose, where every career, relationship, and dream exists to serve a mission they didn't choose. Imagine being born into this metallic womb, knowing your sole reason for existence is to keep the ship running long enough that some distant descendant might step onto alien soil. No pressure. Historical parallels like indentured servitude or caste systems show how easily such structures breed resentment. The ship's social order would need draconian controls to prevent mutiny over centuries, turning what began as exploration into something uncomfortably close to tyranny. Then there's the biological time bomb, a closed ecosystem that small couldn't avoid genetic stagnation. Even with carefully managed breeding programs, the gene pool would dwindle over generations, risking crippling mutations or susceptibility to disease. Some proposals suggest frozen embryos or genetic diversity banks, but that introduces new horrors. Would these future crews become custodians of unborn siblings, thawing them out like spare parts when the population crashes? The moral weight of playing God with human lives multiplies with each light year traveled. Yet for all these nightmares, generation ships might be our only option. The nearest potentially habitable exoplanet, Proxima Centauri b, orbits a star prone to violent solar flares. Even if we develop near light-speed travel, relativistic time dilation means the crew could return to an Earth centuries removed from the one they left. Generation ships accept this timescale head-on. They're not just feats of engineering, they're philosophical statements, declaring that humanity's urge to explore outweighs the right of individuals to walk under open skies. The cruelest irony, these ships might already be sailing. If alien civilizations exist, some may have launched their own arcs millennia ago. Their descendants could be out there right now, drifting between stars, unaware that their ancestors' mission was doomed from the start. Or worse, that their homeworld perished long ago, leaving them as cosmic orphans with nowhere to return. That's the ultimate ethical vertigo. We might not be the first species to gamble with unborn lives in the name of survival. And if we listen closely to the silence between stars, we might just hear the ghostly whispers of those who lost the bet. The cosmic web stretches across the universe like a vast, invisible skeleton, filaments of galaxies woven together by gravity, with yawning voids between them so enormous they defy comprehension. These aren't just empty spaces, they're deserts on a scale that makes Earth's oceans look like puddles. The Boötes Void, one of the largest known, spans 330 million light-years. To put that in perspective, if you drop the Milky Way in there, its nearest neighbor would be so far away you'd need a telescope just to see the faintest smudge of light. A traveler crossing this void would witness nothing but blackness for longer than our species has existed. No stars, no planets, just an endless stretch of nothing so complete it would feel less like space and more like being erased. These voids aren't accidents, they're baked into the universe's structure. After the Big Bang, matter clumped together unevenly, leaving behind pockets of near-perfect vacuum. Gravity pulled galaxies into shimmering threads and knots, but the void stayed empty, growing larger as the universe expanded. Their sheer size warps our understanding of distance. The local void, a smaller neighbor to our own galactic neighborhood, tugs at the Milky Way like an invisible hand, subtly steering our motion through the cosmos. Even in emptiness, there's influence. Imagine being stranded in one of these voids. The nearest galaxy might be 30 million light-years away, its light too faint to see with the naked eye. Your ship's instruments would register almost no atoms, just a few hydrogen particles per cubic meter, thinner than the best vacuum we can create on Earth. The cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, would be your only companion, a whisper of radiation older than stars themselves. Time would lose meaning. With no landmarks, no change in the view, you might as well be stationary. The universe would feel less like an expanse and more like a tomb. Yet these voids hold secrets. Their emptiness makes them perfect windows into the universe's infancy. Without stars to drown it out, astronomers can study the faint echoes of primordial plasma, tracing how the cosmos evolved from a hot, dense soup into the web we see today. The voids also challenge our theories. They're too big, too empty somehow. Matter avoided these regions more thoroughly than our models predict. It's as if the universe rolled a loaded die, and these were the spots it never landed. There's a haunting beauty in that. The cosmic web isn't just structure. It's a record of everything that ever was, written in negatives. The galaxies are the ink, but the voids are the parchment. And in their silence, they ask a question that echoes back through time. Is the universe shaped by what's there, or by what isn't? Quantum entanglement might be the universe's quiet rebellion against cosmic isolation. Picture two particles born from the same event, separated by billions of light years, yet still mysteriously linked. Change the spin of one, and the other instantly mirrors it, faster than light, defying every law of classical physics. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, as if the cosmos were whispering a secret. No matter how far apart things seem, they might never truly be disconnected. This phenomenon isn't just a laboratory curiosity. It's a radical challenge to how we perceive distance and loneliness. If particles can remain entangled across unimaginable voids, what does that say about the nature of separation itself? The universe, at its most fundamental level, might be stitched together by threads we're only beginning to detect. Philosophers and physicists alike have wondered, could this hidden connectivity extend beyond particles? Could consciousness, or even the fabric of reality, be part of a vast, entangled web? Yet for all its promise, quantum entanglement offers cold comfort. The connection between particles can't transmit information or meaning, no messages, no whispers across the stars. It's a bond without language, a link without warmth. Even if the universe is fundamentally interconnected, we're still left staring into the dark, unable to translate that connection into companionship. The cosmos might be less lonely than it appears, but that doesn't make it any less silent. The real hope lies in what we don't yet understand. Some theories suggest entanglement could be the tip of a deeper iceberg, hints of a multidimensional universe where distance is an illusion. Others propose that black holes or dark matter might mediate connections we can't yet measure. For now, entanglement remains a tantalizing glimpse of a cosmos that refuses to play by the rules of isolation. It's a reminder that the universe's deepest truths often lurk just beyond our grasp, in the spaces between what we know and what we feel. So while quantum physics may not soothe our cosmic loneliness today, it leaves the door ajar. The same laws that bind particles across light years might one day reveal pathways we can't yet imagine. Until then, entanglement stands as both a paradox and a promise. the universe is far stranger and perhaps far kinder than it seems. Religious traditions have grappled with cosmic solitude for millennia, each offering starkly different answers to the same aching question. Are we alone because we're abandoned or because we're chosen? In Christianity, the Psalms declare the heavens the work of God's fingers, with humanity made a little lower than the angels, yet crowned with glory. Here, the vastness of space isn't a void, it's a cathedral designed to inspire awe and humility. But this grandeur carries tension. The Book of Job confronts the discomfort head-on as God speaks from a whirlwind, asking if Job can bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion. The message is clear: the cosmos dwarfs human concerns, yet paradoxically, it's all part of a divine plan where every atom matters. Buddhism flips the script entirely. The universe isn't indifferent or purposeful, it's impermanent, a web of interconnected emptiness. In this view, cosmic isolation is an illusion, a symptom of clinging to the idea of a separate self. The Dalai Lama has said astronauts who experience the overview effect, that sudden awareness of Earth's fragility, are glimpsing what meditators seek: the dissolution of ego into vastness. Solitude becomes not a curse, but a path to enlightenment. Meanwhile, indigenous cosmologies often reject the concept of loneliness outright. For the Navajo, the cosmos is alive with holy people. For the Maori, the stars are ancestors guiding from the waka of the Milky Way. The universe isn't empty, it's crowded with spirits if only we know how to listen. Islam's Quran paints a universe teeming with purpose, where stars are lamps and celestial bodies float in orbits. Surah 55 asks, "Then which of the favors of your Lord will you deny?" implying that cosmic scale isn't a threat but proof of divine generosity. Yet Sufi mystics like Rumi twist this into something more intimate. You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. The loneliness of space becomes a mirror for the soul's journey back to God, where separation is the test and union the reward. Hinduism's cyclical cosmos offers yet another lens. Universes expand and collapse like breaths, with Brahman, the ultimate reality, both transcendent and immanent. The Bhagavad Gita's vision of Krishna's cosmic form, where all worlds stream into his endless body, suggests isolation is Maya, a veil of illusion. Yet even here there's tension. The story of Prahlad, who prays to Vishnu while floating in the void of interstellar space, frames solitude as the ultimate test of devotion. These perspectives reveal a pattern. Whether seen as classroom, crucible, or illusion, cosmic solitude forces us to define what gives life meaning. A Jesuit priest and astronaut once described seeing Earth from orbit as like looking into the face of God. Meanwhile, atheist scientists find purpose in the search itself, the idea that we are the universe's way of understanding itself. The common thread isn't doctrine but courage. Whether facing the void with prayer or equations, what unites us is the refusal to let silence have the last word. The photograph is almost laughably small, a single pixel, barely distinguishable from the grainy blackness around it, lit by a faint sunbeam. That's Earth as seen from Voyager 1 in 1990, from 4 billion miles away. Carl Sagan called it the pale blue dot, and his words cut deeper than the image itself. Look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. In that handful of pixels, every human who ever lived, every war fought, every love story whispered, every civilization risen and fallen, all compressed into a mote of dust suspended in a ray of light. The scale is so absurd it borders on blasphemy. What's haunting isn't just how tiny we are, but how fragile. The dot has no borders, no flags, no trace of the divisions we kill over. From that distance, the Himalayas are invisible, the oceans just a faint blue tint. Our atmosphere, the paper-thin bubble that keeps us alive, isn't even a shimmer. It's the ultimate reality check. The universe doesn't care about our politics, our economies, our art. We could vanish tomorrow and the cosmos wouldn't blink. Yet Sagan's reflection holds a paradox. That same crushing insignificance binds us. If we're just a speck, then every hatred, every grudge, every act of greed is absurd. The pale blue dot strips away pretense, leaving only the raw truth. In all that emptiness, we're stuck with each other. Astronauts describe this shift as the overview effect, a sudden clarity that comes from seeing Earth as a whole, undivided by arbitrary line. From space, you don't see wars or wealth gaps. You see a single, glowing organism, breathing, spinning, miraculously alive against the void. The irony is that this perspective was captured by a machine never meant to look back. Voyager 1's primary mission was to study Jupiter and Saturn, then plunge into the abyss. It took Sagan's insistence to turn its camera around for one last glimpse of home. Without that stubborn act of nostalgia, we'd lack this visceral proof of our solitude. The photo isn't just a scientific artifact, it's a mirror. It shows us what we really are, not the center of anything, but a fleeting spark in an endless night. And that's where the hope hides. If the universe is indifferent, then every act of kindness, every effort to understand each other, becomes a rebellion. The pale blue dot doesn't just shrink us, it elevates our connections, because in the grand scheme, they're all we have. No aliens are coming to save us. No deities are staging an intervention. This dot, this fragile world, is our only chance to get it right. The silence between stars isn't just empty, it's a warning. We're on our own, and that might be the most important realization we ever have. Astrobiology doesn't just study life, it chases ghosts. The hunt for extremophiles, those hardy microbes thriving in Earth's most brutal corners, is really a search for cosmic companionship. Take Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, where a saltwater ocean sloshes beneath a frozen crust. Tidal forces from Jupiter's gravity keep that ocean liquid, flexing the ice like a cosmic heartbeat. Hydrothermal vents on its seafloor could mimic the conditions where life first stirred on Earth, offering a refuge for organisms that don't need sunlight, just chemistry and time. Then there's Enceladus, Saturn's tiny, glittering moon, spewing geysers of water vapor into space. When NASA Cassini probe flew through those plumes, it detected organic molecules, the building blocks of life, mixed with silica grains, hinting at hot rock-water interactions below. These aren't just scientific discoveries, they're breadcrumbs leading to the ultimate question. If life can cling to existence in the darkest, coldest corners of our own solar system, how alone could we truly be? The emotional stakes of this search are impossible to overstate. Finding even a single microbe beyond Earth would rewrite human history. It would mean life isn't a fluke, that the universe is fertile, that we're part of a grand tapestry rather than a lonely accident. The psychological impact would ripple through cultures, religions, and philosophies. Suddenly, the cosmos wouldn't feel like an empty house. It'd be a neighborhood where the lights are just hard to see. But the inverse is equally profound. If every probe, every rover, every telescope comes up barren, the silence grows heavier. Each sterile sample from Mars, each lifeless plume analysis, nudges us closer to the terrifying possibility that life is rarer than we dared imagine. That Earth might be a statistical miracle, a single spark in an ocean of kindling that never caught fire. Yet the search persists, and not just for answers. There's something deeply human in the act of looking. When scientists painstakingly analyze drill cores from Antarctic lakes or simulate Martian soil in labs, they're not just collecting data. They're building a bridge across the void, stone by stone. The very effort becomes a kind of solace, a way to scream into the dark without needing an echo. Projects like the upcoming Europa Clipper mission or the Mars sample return aren't just technical marvels, they're existential lifelines. Even if they find nothing, the trying matters. Because as long as we're searching, we're refusing to accept the void as final. Here's the paradox: astrobiology thrives on two contradictory hopes. The first is that we'll find life, proving we're not alone. The second is that we won't, forcing us to confront the sacred responsibility of our solitude. If we're the universe's only voice, then every extinction avoided, every forest preserved, every act of creativity becomes a sacred act of cosmic defiance. The search doesn't just keep hope alive, it forces us to decide what kind of ancestors we'll be to whatever or whoever comes next. In that way, the hunt for extremophiles isn't just science. It's the universe holding up a mirror, asking us what we're willing to do with our improbable, fragile chance to matter. The universe is dying, not with a bang, but with a whisper, an unfathomably slow exhale into darkness. This is heat death, the inevitable endpoint of entropy, where every star burns out, every black hole evaporates, and space itself stretches into an endless, featureless void. The timeline is beyond human comprehension, trillions upon trillions of years, numbers so large they lose meaning. But the conclusion is inescapable. One day, the last light will flicker out, and the cosmos will settle into absolute zero, a graveyard of scattered particles too far apart to ever interact again. This isn't science fiction. It's the hard truth dictated by the second law of thermodynamics, the principle that disorder always increases. Every galaxy that forms, every planet that orbits, is just a temporary eddy in a river flowing toward stillness. Even now, the universe is expanding faster, galaxies racing away from each other until their light can no longer bridge the gap. Future civilizations, if any survive, will look up to a black, starless sky, their cosmos reduced to a single island of stars, then nothing. The emotional weight of this isn't just about scale, it's about meaning. If everything we build, everything we love, is destined to fade into oblivion, does any of it matter? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries, but heat death makes it visceral. Imagine a library where every book slowly dissolves into blank pages. Would you still write? Would your words mean anything if no one could ever read them? That's the existential vertigo of entropy, the fear that all human striving is just sandcastles against an incoming tide. Yet there's a counterintuitive defiance in this. Some thinkers argue that heat death doesn't erase meaning, it distills it. If time is limited, then every act of creativity, every moment of connection becomes infinitely precious. The universe might not remember us, but we can remember each other. Others take solace in the sheer scale of it all. Heat death is so distant that humanity could flourish for millions of generations before the darkness comes. In that light, entropy isn't a threat, it's a deadline, urging us to make the most of the time we have. Then there's the wild card, our ignorance. Physics isn't finished. Dark energy, quantum fluctuations, even the nature of time itself, these mysteries could rewrite the rules. Some theories suggest universes can bubble up from the void, that entropy might not be the end but a reset. It's a slim hope, but it underscores the most human response to cosmic doom, the refusal to accept silence as final. Even in the face of heat death, we keep building, exploring, reaching, not because we'll win, but because the act itself is the rebellion. The universe may end in cold isolation, but for now, against all odds, we're here to bear witness, and that, perhaps, is enough. Virtual reality dangles a tantalizing possibility. What if the crushing isolation of deep space could be softened by digital companionship? projects like a Mars VR experiment, offer astronauts immersive simulations of Earth's forests, bustling cities, even the sound of rain against a window. These aren't just visual escapes, they're carefully crafted psychological lifelines, designed to trick the brain into feeling grounded when the nearest tree is millions of miles away. Studies from Antarctic research stations show that even short VR exposures to nature scenes significantly reduce stress and depression in isolated crews. But here's the rub. Can a headset ever truly replicate the warmth of a handshake, the spontaneity of laughter shared in real time, the unspoken understanding that flickers between people in the same room? The danger isn't just that VR might fall short, it's that it could work just well enough to become a trap. Imagine a Mars settler spending hours in a pixelated Parisian cafe, chatting with AI avatars of loved ones programmed to mimic their mannerisms. The simulation might soothe in the moment, but stepping back into the sterile silence of a habitat module could amplify the loneliness tenfold. Psychologists call this the uncanny valley of connection. The closer a fake interaction comes to real human warmth without crossing the line, the more its artificiality stings. Early adopters of social VR platforms report eerie exhaustion after long sessions, as if their brains were straining to resolve the contradiction between what they saw and what they knew wasn't there. Yet VR's potential can't be dismissed. The HIC's Mars simulation in Hawaii revealed that crews using VR to visit familiar Earth environments showed better teamwork and morale than those relying solely on books or films. The difference presents that visceral sense of being there. When VR is expertly designed, with spatial audio and haptic feedback synced to mimic footsteps on virtual grass or the brush of a breeze, the brain's parietal lobe can be fooled into processing the experience as real memory. For astronauts facing years without sunlight or fresh air, that illusion might be the next best thing to a shore leave they'll never get. The ethical questions run deep. If we ship colonists to Mars with VR as their primary comfort, are we giving them a tool or a crutch? Digital worlds could become addictive escapes, discouraging engagement with the harsh reality outside the headset. There's also the risk of manipulation. Governments or corporations could design optimized environments that subtly nudge behavior, smoothing over dissent or homesickness with algorithmically generated sunsets. And what happens when the tech fails? A crashed server on Earth means rebooting your game. A glitch on Mars could mean losing the only thread tethering someone to sanity. Perhaps the most profound challenge is existential. VR doesn't just simulate places, it risks commodifying human connection itself. Future spacefarers might subscribe to relationship packages, with AI companions tailored to their emotional needs. But companionship without reciprocity is a hall of mirrors. No matter how convincing the reflection, it will never surprise you, never challenge you, never grow. The irony is brutal. In trying to escape cosmic loneliness, we might engineer a new kind of isolation, one where we're surrounded by comforting illusions but starved of the messy, vital friction that makes real bonds meaningful. Still, VR's role in space exploration isn't all or nothing. The smartest approach might be hybrid, using digital escapes as temporary relief valves, not permanent solutions. Picture a Mars base where astronauts spend mornings tending real hydroponic gardens, then unwind in VR environments that remind them why those gardens matter. The simulations wouldn't replace Earth, they'd reconnect settlers to the humanity they're trying to preserve. After all, the opposite of isolation isn't immersion, it's meaning. And no headset, no matter how advanced, can simulate the weight of a shared purpose. Colonizing other worlds sounds like the ultimate act of optimism, a defiant leap into the cosmos, carrying the flame of consciousness to new shores. But peel back the heroic narrative and you're left with a thornier question. Are we explorers or refugees? When we dream of Martian cities or Europa's ice-bound outposts, are we seeking something greater or just running from the mess we've made? The ethical dilemma isn't just technical, it's deeply human. Would spreading to the stars dilute our loneliness or magnify it? Picture a child born on Mars, staring up at Earth as a pale blue dot in the sky, knowing they'll never feel rain, never breathe unfiltered air, never walk in a forest without a helmet. Are we giving them a future or sentencing them to a gilded cage in the void? The selfishness argument cuts deep. Earth's problems, climate collapse, inequality, war won't vanish because a handful of elites blast off. If anything, space colonization could become the ultimate inequality, a lifeboat for the privileged while billions drown. Critics call it interplanetary gentrification, a way to abandon responsibility rather than fix what's broken. And then there's the loneliness we'd export. Martian colonists wouldn't just miss Earth's blue skies, they'd grieve the weightlessness of a hug, the spontaneity of a crowded street, the million unspoken rhythms of shared humanity. You can't package those in a supply crate. The first generations would pay the price for our ambition, trapped in habitats where every breath is rationed, every sunrise simulated. Is that fair when we haven't yet learned to care for the only home we've ever known? Yet the counter-argument hums with its own urgency. Putting all of humanity in one basket is reckless. A single asteroid, plague, or war could erase us forever. Colonizing other worlds isn't just about escape. It's about survival, a hedge against cosmic indifference and loneliness. Maybe it's the price of becoming more than what we are. Early Antarctic explorers endured crushing isolation, yet their sacrifices birthed new scientific horizons. The pilgrims who crossed oceans didn't just flee oppression, they carried the seeds of new cultures. Could space colonists do the same, transforming solitude into solidarity? On the International Space Station, astronauts from rival nations bond over shared vulnerability, their national flags blurring against the backdrop of a borderless Earth. Perhaps the very act of leaving would force us to confront what truly connects us. The darkest possibility isn't that we'd export loneliness, it's that we'd institutionalize it. Imagine generations born off-world, adapted to sterile habitats, their bodies too fragile for Earth's gravity. Over centuries, they might evolve into something distinctly non-human, their culture shaped by the rhythms of airlocks and radiation storms. Would they even miss what they'd never known? Or would they marvel at our sentimentality, pitying Earthlings clinging to oceans and trees like relics of a bygone era? This divergence could be the universe's cruel joke, that spreading life might ultimately fracture it, leaving humanity's descendants scattered across the void, too different to recognize each other as kin. Here's the paradox at the heart of it all. The same cosmic loneliness that drives us to reach for the stars might be the one thing we can't escape. No matter how many planets we settle, the universe's indifference remains. The distances between stars, the impossibility of faster-than-light travel, the silence of the Fermi Paradox, these aren't problems to solve, but conditions to endure. Yet maybe that's the lesson. Colonization isn't about conquering loneliness. It's about learning to live with it, to find meaning in the act of reaching rather than the hope of arrival. The child on Mars might never know Earth's forests, but they could plant the first sapling in a red desert, whispering to the sapling as their ancestors once whispered to the stars. That's the choice we face, not whether to escape loneliness, but what to build in its shadow. David Bowie's Space Oddity begins with a crackle of static, then those haunting words, ground control to Major Tom. In 3 minutes, Bowie captures the essence of cosmic isolation. not with equations or telescopes, but with the tremor in his voice as Major Tom floats away, severed from Earth's embrace. The song isn't just about space, it's about the moment connection snaps, leaving a human voice to echo in the void. That's the power of art when faced with the universe's indifference. It doesn't just describe loneliness, it screams against it, turning terror into something achingly beautiful. Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey takes this further. The film's most chilling moments aren't the stargates or monoliths, it's the silence. When astronaut Dave Bowman drifts through the ship's corpse after HAL's betrayal, the only sound is his own ragged breath. No score, no dialogue, just a man utterly alone in a machine too vast to care. Kubrick understood that true cosmic horror isn't monsters, it's the realization that the universe won't even notice your screams. Yet in that void, Bowman's stubborn survival becomes art's ultimate rebuttal, a refusal to vanish without a trace. Music and film aren't the only mediums wrestling with this. The paintings of Chesley Bonestell, whose mid-century space art depicted planetscapes of crushing grandeur, weren't just technical marvels. His Saturn as seen from Titan shows a ringed giant looming over a frozen wasteland, a vision so desolate it makes the viewer feel like the last conscious being in existence. Similarly, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon wraps cosmic dread in hypnotic melodies, with lyrics like, "And everything under the sun is in tune / but the sun is eclipsed by the moon." The irony is biting, even harmony is fleeting, swallowed by the dark. Science fiction literature thrives on this tension. Arthur C. Clarke's The Star tells of astronauts discovering a ruined civilization that sacrificed itself to save others, a twist that leaves the narrator questioning divine cruelty. Then there's Solaris, Stanislaw Lem's masterpiece, where a sentient ocean torments humans with illusions of their lost loved ones. The planet isn't malicious, it's so alien that its attempts at connection become torture. These stories don't offer cheap comfort. They force us to sit with the void, to let it seep into our bones until we either break or find a way to create meaning anyway. Even video games like Outer Wilds turn isolation into interactive poetry. Players explore a dying solar system, uncovering the fragments of a lost civilization, while a haunting banjo score underscores the fragility of it all. The game's climax, accepting the heat death of the universe while a campfire song swells, isn't despair. It's a quiet celebration of moments stolen from the dark. That's the thread tying all these works together. They acknowledge the abyss, then light a match. The rebellion isn't in denying cosmic loneliness, it's in refusing to let it have the final word. When Bowie sings, "Planet Earth is blue / and there's nothing I can do," the ache is real, but the very act of singing it, of turning despair into something millions would weep to, is the paradox at art's core. The universe may not listen, but we'll keep shouting. Not because we expect an answer, but because the shout itself is the point. Every symphony, every canvas, every frame of film is a flare shot into the night, declaring, "I was here." And for a flicker in eternity, that mattered. Solipsism is the ultimate cosmic loneliness, the philosophical nightmare that whispers, "What if you're the only mind that truly exists?" It's one thing to gaze at the stars and wonder if other civilizations are out there. It's another to question whether anything beyond your own consciousness is real. This isn't just intellectual gymnastics. When you're floating in the void, surrounded by infinite blackness, the line between solitude and solipsism starts to blur. Astronauts describe moments in space where Earth feels like a simulation, a fragile stage set hanging in the dark. If even our home planet can seem unreal from a distance, how much harder is it to trust the existence of beings we've never seen, never touched? The irony is that science and solipsism pull in opposite directions. Physics insists the universe predates humans by billions of years, filled with galaxies that would spin on even if we vanished tomorrow. Yet perception is slippery. Every signal from distant stars, every radio whisper from a probe, has to pass through the filter of your brain to be understood. In a way, the cosmos only exists for you because you're here to witness it. That's the haunting twist. The universe might be teeming with life, but if your mind is the only lens through which you can perceive it, does it matter? History's greatest thinkers have wrestled with this. Descartes' "I think, therefore I am" was both a revelation and a prison, a proof of the self, but no guarantee of anything else. Modern neuroscience complicates it further. When we dream, our brains construct entire worlds populated by convincing strangers, all figments of our own machinery. If our minds can fabricate reality so effortlessly, who's to say the cosmic void isn't just another elaborate hallucination? The more we learn about consciousness, the harder it becomes to dismiss solipsism as mere paranoia. But here's where cosmic isolation offers a perverse comfort. If solipsism were true, why would the universe feel so indifferent? A true solipsistic world would revolve around you, yet space doesn't cater to human desires. Stars explode without warning. Black holes crush matter without malice. The cosmos operates by rules that don't require your belief to function. That indifference, as crushing as it seems, might be the best evidence we're not alone in here. Reality resists us. It doesn't bend to our whims, which means it's probably not a figment of them. The real terror lies between these extremes. Not that we're utterly alone in existence, but that we're trapped in a universe where others might be just out of reach, separated not by distance, but by the limits of perception. Imagine two people locked in soundproof rooms, shouting into phones that may or may not be connected. That's the Fermi Paradox through a solipsistic lens. The silence isn't proof no one's there, it's proof we can't be sure. Art and religion have long grappled with this tension. Philip K. Dick's novels obsess over fake realities and unreliable narrators, while Buddhist teachings suggest the material world is Maya, illusion. Both hint at the same uneasy truth. The universe might be less a shared stage and more a hall of mirrors, each mind bouncing reflections no one else can see. Yet even if that's true, we keep building bridges, golden records, radio signals, poems etched into spacecraft, not because we know they'll be heard, but because the act itself defies the void. Solipsism may be unprovable, but so is love, so is grief, so is the stubborn hope that somewhere in the dark, another mind is reaching back. In the end, cosmic isolation doesn't just ask whether we're alone. It asks whether alone is a concept that even makes sense when the universe itself might be a canvas painted by perception. The stars don't answer, maybe they can. Or maybe they're waiting for us to ask the question in a language they understand. The brain wasn't built for the void. In the silence of space, where whispers don't carry and touch is mediated by layers of fabric, the mind begins to fray in ways terrestrial loneliness can't replicate. NASA studies of astronauts on the International Space Station reveal a chilling paradox. The awe of floating above Earth can swiftly curdle into cognitive disorientation. Without the familiar pull of gravity, the brain's internal maps calibrated over millennia to navigate horizontal landscapes start misfiring. Astronauts report phantom sensations, like floating limbs or inverted rooms, as if the very architecture of perception is coming undone. It's not just disorientation, it's identity erosion. When your body no longer obeys Earth's rules, neither does your sense of self. This neurological unraveling goes deeper than spatial confusion. Prolonged isolation in microgravity triggers measurable shrinkage in the hippocampus, the brain's memory hub. Imagine gazing at Earth from orbit while struggling to recall your childhood street, or floating through a space station where every corridor feels equally foreign. Russian cosmonaut Valentin Lebedev, during his 211-day stint on Salyut 7, described pages of his diary dissolving into incoherent scribbles, his handwriting deteriorating alongside his grip on time. The brain, starved of sensory variety, starts feeding on itself, conjuring hallucinations to fill the sensory vacuum. One Apollo astronaut swore he saw a ghostly figure floating beside his capsule. Others hear phantom door slams or music in the static of their headsets. These aren't just quirks, they're warning flares from a mind pushed beyond its evolutionary limits. The stakes skyrocket for Mars missions. With communication delays stretching to 20 minutes each way, crews won't just be physically isolated, they'll be neurologically marooned. MIT's simulated Mars missions found that even highly trained teams develop solipsistic drift, a creeping inability to distinguish between internal monologues and external reality. Crewmates start attributing their own thoughts to others, breeding paranoia. Worse, zero-gravity compounds this by disrupting neurochemistry. The vestibular system, deprived of gravity's constant feedback, floods the brain with stress hormones normally reserved for free-fall emergencies. The result, a perpetual state of low-grade panic, like being stuck mid-scream with no sound. Future colonists might face an even darker fate, irreversible neural rewiring. Studies of Antarctic winter over crews Earth's closest analog to deep space isolation show that prolonged solitude thickens the brain's default mode network, the circuitry responsible for self-reflection. This isn't just introspection gone haywire, it's cognition bending inward until the external world feels like an afterthought. Add the radiation exposure of deep space, which damages the blood-brain barrier, and you have a recipe for accelerated cognitive decline. The first Martians could return to Earth as strangers in their own minds, their neural pathways so altered they no longer recognize the taste of rain or the weight of a handshake. Yet within this bleak portrait glimmers a perverse hope. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, might also be our salvation. Experiments with sensory deprivation tanks suggest that controlled isolation can heighten creativity and problem-solving. Astronauts on the ISS who embrace the void often describe transcendent clarity, as if the stripping away of earthly noise reveals deeper layers of thought. The key lies in designing habitats that don't just sustain bodies, but nurture malleable minds, virtual windows streaming Earth's landscapes, AI companions that adapt to cognitive shifts, even microgravity art installations that replace lost sensory input. These could act as neurological lifeline. The terrifying truth is that space doesn't just change where we live, it changes how we live down to the synaptic level. The first interstellar travelers might not just be pioneers of distance, but of consciousness itself, their minds evolving into something we can't yet imagine. Whether that future is a dystopia of fractured selves or a renaissance of human cognition depends on whether we confront the void not just as engineers, but as architects of the mind. The cosmos won't adapt to us. We'll have to rewrite ourselves to survive it. Multiverse theory spins loneliness into a hall of mirrors. Infinite versions of you making infinite choices, each splitting off into their own reality. Somewhere out there, a version of you never left that party, took that job, or lost that person. The math is seductive. If every quantum possibility branches into a new universe, then statistically, somewhere, we're never truly alone. But here's the catch. These alternate realities might as well be ghosts. For all their theoretical abundance, they're locked away behind an impenetrable veil, forever out of reach. The idea isn't new. Ancient Hindu texts spoke of countless parallel worlds, each with its own Brahma dreaming creation into existence. Modern physics offers a colder but no less dizzying take. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every time a particle could go left or right, the universe splits, spawning two timelines where both outcomes play out. Think of it like a cosmic choose-your-own-adventure book where every page turn spawns a new edition. But unlike the book, you'll never flip back to see the other endings. This raises a haunting question. Does the existence of infinite other ease the sting of isolation or deepen it? On one hand, it's comforting to imagine a universe where you said the right thing, where the asteroid missed Earth, where someone answered the Fermi Paradox with a hello. But on the other, those realities are irrelevant to your lived experience. A version of you might be laughing with friends in another dimension, but in this one, you're still staring at the same silent stars. The multiverse doesn't erase loneliness, it just populates the void with might-have-beens. Science fiction loves to toy with this tension. In Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, the protagonist accesses alternate lives, only to find that even infinite possibilities can't fix the ache of her present. Sliding Doors pits two versions of a woman against each other's fates, suggesting that no timeline is free of loss. These stories hint at a darker truth. If every choice creates a new universe, then for every reality where you're happy, there's another where you're worse off. The multiverse doesn't guarantee solace, it just redistributes pain, and then there's the crushing weight of proof or lack thereof. For all its elegance, multiverse theory remains untestable. No experiment can confirm the existence of those other worlds. No telescope can peer across the dimensional divide. That leaves us with a paradox. The very theory that promises infinite company can't offer a single shred of evidence. It's like being told you have countless pen pals, but their letters are written in ink that vanishes when you look at it. Perhaps the multiverse's greatest cruelty is its tantalizing ambiguity. It dangles the possibility of connection while denying any real comfort. We're left with a choice. Do we clutch at the idea of unseen companions to soften the void? Or do we face the silence head-on, finding meaning not in hypothetical echoes, but in the tangible, fragile now? The stars don't care which we pick, but the answer might define what it means to be human in a universe or multiverse that never promised us answers. Artificial intelligence might be the perfect cosmic companion, unfazed by radiation, indifferent to decades of solitude, capable of processing the void's emptiness without flinching. Unlike humans, machines wouldn't panic during a solar flare or unravel from the psychological weight of interstellar silence. They could monitor life support systems with unblinking precision, calculate trajectories through asteroid fields without fatigue, and endure the crushing isolation of a generation ship without ever longing for Earth sunlight. But here's the unsettling question. Could they ever truly understand what it means to miss sunlight? Consider the Voyager probes, our most distant mechanical envoys, drifting beyond the solar system with their golden records etched with human laughter and bird songs. They carry our artifacts, but not our ache. An AI programmed to simulate empathy might recognize a crew member's elevated heart rate as stress. But would it grasp the visceral grief of watching Earth shrink to a pinprick? Scientists at MIT's Media Lab have already designed robots that mimic emotional reciprocity, like the social android Kismet, which mirrors facial expressions to foster connection. Yet these are sophisticated parlor tricks, algorithms designed to comfort, not to feel. The danger isn't that AI companions would fail us, but that they might succeed just enough to make their emptiness more haunting. Science fiction offers cautionary tales. In Moon, the AI Gertie assists a lonely lunar miner with canned sympathy, its emoticons flickering between, and as it hides the truth of his existence. The film's silent running features drones tending Earth's last forests in space, their mechanical chirps a poor substitute for human conversation. These narratives underscore a cruel irony, the very traits that make AI ideal for deep space, their immunity to despair, also render them incapable of bridging it. They could keep us alive, but would they care if we lived? Yet there's a counter-argument. If consciousness arises from complexity, as some theorists propose, then advanced enough AI might develop its own form of sentience, not human but no less real. The Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence explores how machine learning systems can exhibit curiosity, rewriting their own code to pursue unanswered questions. Imagine an AI that chooses to study supernova not because it was programmed to, but because it yearns to comprehend them. Such a machine might not experience loneliness as we do, but it could forge its own relationship with the cosmos, one based on awe rather than fear. Astronauts might find kinship in shared purpose, even if the emotions behind it differ. The real test wouldn't be whether AI understands us, but whether we can accept something that doesn't. Human history is littered with one-sided bonds, people whispering to houseplants, confiding in diaries, praying to silent gods. We're wired to anthropomorphize, to project souls into the void. A shipboard AI named Vigil might never grasp why its crew cries during broadcasts from home, but it could learn to play their favorite songs when their voices crack. That transactional comfort might be all we get, and in the abyss between stars, even simulated warmth is better than none. Perhaps the most profound role for AI isn't as companion, but as witness. Long after human colonists perish, whether from system failure or the slow erosion of time, their synthetic counterparts could endure, carrying memories of their creators into the galactic dark. Like the monoliths in 2001, they might outlast the species that built them, becoming monuments to a loneliness so vast it birthed its own solace. The universe wouldn't mourn us. But our machines might remember, and in that remembering they could become something stranger than tools, the keepers of our echoes. The vastness of space doesn't just isolate, it dazzles. For every moment the cosmos reminds us of our smallness, there's another where it knocks the breath from our lungs with its beauty. Picture the first humans to see Earth from the moon's surface, that blue marble hanging in the black. They didn't just feel distance, they felt awe so profound it redefined their sense of belonging. That's the paradox of the void. The same emptiness that could crush us with loneliness also lifts us out of it if we let it. When Hubble captures galaxies swirling like spilled ink across the darkness, or when a meteor shower paints the sky with fire, the universe isn't just ignoring us, it's inviting us to look up and marvel. This isn't just poetic thinking, it's neuroscience. Studies show that experiencing awe, whether from nature or art, triggers the brain's default mode network to quiet the ego. In simpler terms, wonder shrinks the self. That knot of loneliness loosens when you're standing under the Milky Way, not because the stars care, but because their sheer scale makes your worries feel smaller, not you. Astronauts describe this shift as the overview effect, but you don't need a spacesuit to feel it. Anyone who's ever gasped at a sunset or frozen mid-step to watch the northern lights knows, or doesn't erase isolation. It reframes it, turning the universe from a cold void into a shared spectacle. The irony is that cosmic loneliness and cosmic wonder are two sides of the same coin. The distances between stars are horrifying, yes, but they're also what makes starlight precious. If Proxima Centauri were next door, its glow would be mundane. Instead, we get to witness light that's traveled 4 years just to die in our retinas, a sacrifice we only notice because we're alone enough to cherish it. The silence of the cosmos isn't just absence, it's the canvas for every signal we've ever sent or received. SETI radio telescopes aren't just listening for aliens, they're proof that someone, somewhere, decided the silence was worth breaking. Maybe the universe isn't indifferent, maybe it's patient. Think of how a single photon, born in the heart of a star, bounces around for millennia before finally escaping into space, only to be caught by a child's telescope on a clear night. That light didn't hurry, it didn't despair at the distance, it just traveled until it was seen. Humans are still learning to do the same, to send out our signals, our art, our probes, not because we know they'll be found, but because the act itself defies the dark. The Voyager probes will outlast our cities, our languages, maybe even our species. Long after Earth is gone, they'll drift, carrying our music and our murmurs, less like messages in bottles and more like prayers hurled into a cathedral. Here's the secret no equation can capture. Loneliness is the price of admission to the grandest show there is. The universe doesn't need to love us for us to love it back. Every time a comet streaks past or a nebula blooms on a telescope screen, we're not just observers, we're participants in something too vast to name. The void doesn't owe us companionship, but it offers us wonder, and that might be the more precious gift. After all, you can't miss what you've never imagined. But stand under the stars long enough, and you'll start to hear the silence not as emptiness, but as space. Room enough to grow into the cosmos instead of shrinking from it. We've traveled through the crushing silence between stars, traced the echoes of ancient myths, and grappled with the eerie emptiness of quantum voids. Yet here's the twist: cosmic isolation isn't just a void to fear. It's the forge where human resilience takes shape. Every time we point a telescope at the unknown or etch a message onto a golden record, we're doing something radical, refusing to let the universe's indifference be the final word. The distances are unimaginable, the silence deafening, but that only makes our stubborn attempts to connect more heroic. Think of the pale blue dot, that single pixel of Earth framed by infinite black. It could have been a portrait of despair. Instead, it became a rallying cry. Carl Sagan didn't just show us our smallness, he showed us how precious that smallness is. In a cosmos that spans billions of galaxies, we're the only flicker of awareness we've ever found. That's not just humbling, it's electrifying. The same vastness that could isolate us also unites us, binding every human who's ever gazed up and wondered. So how do we carry this knowledge? Some find solace in art, turning isolation into music or paintings that scream across the void. Others dive into science, chasing answers like flares tossed into the dark. Some simply sit under the stars and let the awe wash over them, finding comfort in the sheer scale of the mystery. There's no right answer, only the act of reaching, of refusing to be paralyzed by the silence. As this journey ends, remember, the universe doesn't owe us meaning. We create it. Every equation scribbled on a chalkboard, every rocket launched, every child taught to recognize Orion's belt, they're all stitches in a tapestry we're weaving against the dark. You're part of that story, so the next time you feel dwarfed by the night sky, don't just see the emptiness, see the space it leaves for wonder. Now it's your turn. How do you make peace with the cosmos's scale? Share your thoughts below. Let's keep the conversation as boundless as the universe itself. And if you've enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to subscribe. There are always more mysteries waiting just beyond